everybody, it's Dr. Forth, and today I'm going to be talking about everybody's favorite educational tool, the dreaded lockdown browser. So if you're an online student or if you are taking classes in the classroom, but your testing is online, you're probably familiar with this tool. The lockdown browser is a exam security tool that basically prevents you from navigating to other sites while you're taking the test. So it's a completely separate browser from your regular browser. And some important notes for that, you can only have one version of Lockdown Browser installed on your device. And the Lockdown Browser is very specific to the institution. So you need to have the specific lockdown browser that goes with your school. If you're taking tests for multiple schools, unfortunately, you'll need to have multiple devices with the lockdown browser installed for the particular school on different devices because you can only have one installed at a time. If you're going to be using your tablet to take the tests, make sure that your faculty has clicked the setting in Lockdown Browser Setup that allows you to use your tablet, because that is an extra setting for that. If they haven't enabled the use of the iPad, you will not be able to take the test with the iPad. So make sure that they've set that up for you. I would also suggest that you don't have any other apps running at the time because you want to minimize the possibility of having device crashes. Make sure you turn off your notifications. I know sometimes you get notifications about updates and so forth. You don't want any of that going on while you're trying to take the test. The Lockdown browser pairs with different softwares to actually monitor you while you're taking the test. So it's not just the lockdown, but it's something like Proctorio, Respondus. It's actually a software program that uses your webcam and it looks for particular behaviors that it deems suspicious. So if it doesn't see your face in the camera, or if it sees multiple faces in the camera, or if there's not enough light or something like that. These are preset things in the software that will create a flag for the instructor to look at. See, on the back side, after you get done with your test, the instructor goes into the Respondus software and they can watch videos of all the students taking the test because that program actually activates the webcam and it will record you through the test. Very important to know this. I've had students who were unclothed when they were taking their test. And so obviously we don't want that. So make sure that you are appropriately dressed. Make sure that you're aware that it's going to activate your webcam and make a recording of you taking the test. Lighting is also very important. I know you might prefer to sit in the room that is dark and just take your test because you like looking at the computer in the dark room. And I myself prefer that. But just like I need to have proper lighting for making the videos, if you don't have proper lighting when you're taking the test, it's going to be very difficult to see the video, and your professor may, in fact, reject that attempt if they can't see you when you're taking the test. It's going to ask you to survey your environment. So you have to move the camera around and show your desktop and so forth to make sure that it's clear of any books or notes or other people that could potentially be providing you improper assistance during the testing time. So be prepared for that. And also it's going to want to see your ID. Now the student ID is nice and easy because it has your name, maybe your student ID number, and your picture, and it doesn't have a whole bunch of extraneous information, maybe a little logo for the school. Some of my students don't use student ID or they can't find it, and I am perfectly willing to accept driver's license or other legitimate photo ID. But the problem with that is that it has other information. Remember that this video is being recorded, so you certainly wouldn't want your address or date of birth to show on there. I suggest covering those areas with Post-it notes or masking tape or something. So when you show your ID to the camera, it has only the photo and name. And again, make sure that your faculty is okay with other ID besides student ID. Canvas versus Blackboard. I know if you get interrupted in the test in Blackboard, you pretty much have to restart the test or have it reset by the faculty because it will submit it and lock you all the way out. Canvas doesn't tend to do that depending. If you're taking a test actually on Canvas, that's a Canvas test, you can sometimes go back in and pick up where you were. But both Blackboard and Canvas have the ability to connect to external tools. Like, for example, some of the classes I teach use tests that are generated by the publisher. So it has a link in Canvas or Blackboard, and then it goes to the publisher's site, and you take the test actually on the publisher's site, not on Canvas or Blackboard. And so at that time, if you go to the external site, it may lock you out entirely. Or even if you have a certain number of attempts on the exam, usually it's one, if you accidentally go in and click just to see, that counts as an attempt. And so make sure that you don't do that. When you're taking tests on either Blackboard or Canvas, there's something called an exam log. So it will say, oh, the student has read the question, selected an answer, and it makes an entry for each answer. If you minimize the screen or open another screen, it makes an entry in the log. So you don't want to do that. And also, this is where it's important to make sure your notifications are turned off. Because if you get a notification that, oh, you have an email or there's a software update, and you click on that to silence the notification, that is going to make an entry on the log. And if the professor was not proctoring you in the classroom, they're not going to know what you clicked on during that time. So just shut everything down besides Lockdown Browser and silence your notifications. When you have online testing, usually there is a window, like the test is open for a certain number of days. This is to allow the students who have different schedules, if it's just an online class, to choose a time that works best for them. So what does everybody do, at least in my classes? Wait until the absolute last day. The test is open until midnight, 11:30 at night. Everybody's trying to take the test. This can cause the server to crash. So you don't want to be in that situation. Make sure that you take your test, maybe not right at the very beginning of the window, but don't wait till the last minute because you might have a server crash or a power outage or anything could happen that would necessitate instructor assistance in resetting that for you. And I can tell you, I'm not sitting up at 11:30 at night monitoring my college email just waiting to reset exams for students. And I suspect nobody else is either. So don't do that. Don't wait to the last minute. One of the schools where I work, it's very restrictive about extensions for exams. So if you have a technical problem, that will require you to use your one allowed exam extension. And then no matter what else happens the rest of the term, if you miss the exam for illness or something else, you have a 0 for that test. So you don't want that to happen. Don't waste your one allowed exam extension for technical problems. Remember not to wait until the absolute last minute. Don't freak out. Now that you understand how the lockdown browser works, you shouldn't have any problem successfully completing your exam. So good luck to everybody. And if you want to learn more about successful student tips, check out my class with study skills and mindfulness practices. It's going to be linked in the description. Good luck to everybody.